When I asked my husband to defend me from his mother's constant jabs, he said, "It's just how she is. You're too sensitive." One night, she called me a glorified maid, in front of friends. "You married below yourself," she told him. Everyone laughed. I left the room. 3 weeks later, I sent out invitations to my promotion party. The title read, "From Maid to CEO." She wasn't invited, but she showed up anyway and was turned away at the door. I married Daniel when I was 28. We met in Austin, Texas. He was sweet, calm, steady. I thought he'd be the kind of man who'd always be in my corner. I was wrong. At first, everything felt like a dream. He was respectful. He listened. He was never flashy, but he made me feel safe. And after the kind of life I had growing up, barely scraping by with a single mom working double shifts, that kind of safety felt like gold. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't see clearly until it was too late, was how tied he was to his mother. Eleanor. Eleanor came into our relationship like she owned it. From day one, she acted like I was temporary. She never outright said anything cruel, but every word out of her mouth was a test I was supposed to fail. And I failed every time in her eyes anyway. She'd say things like, "Oh, your parents didn't go to college? Interesting. You're in operations? That's like, what admin work? You always dress so practical." Every comment was polite on the surface, but sharp underneath. And when I told Daniel how it made me feel, he brushed it off. "That's just how she is. She's not trying to hurt you. You're being too sensitive." It became a cycle. She'd make a jab. I'd talk to him. He'd shrug it off. I'd feel crazy for even bringing it up. It got worse after we got married. She started showing up uninvited. She criticized how I folded the towels. She once told me my homemade lasagna tasted store-bought with a smirk. But the worst thing was how Daniel never stepped in. Not once. Not even when she got bold with her words. It was like he became a little boy around her, afraid to challenge her, always agreeing with her tone no matter what she said. And then came that night. We were hosting a dinner party, Daniel's friends from college, a few of their wives, 1 or 2 of my coworkers. Eleanor, of course, was there. She drank 2 glasses of red wine, then a third. She was loud, more than usual. Someone at the table asked me about work. I was proud. I'd just been made a regional manager. It was a big deal. I opened my mouth to answer, but Eleanor cut me off. "She's doing great. Not bad for a glorified maid." There was a pause and then laughter. The kind of uncomfortable laugh people do when they don't know what else to do. Then she turned to Daniel and said, "You married below yourself, sweetie. But I suppose love is blind." And he laughed. He laughed. Not loud. Not for long. But he smiled. He looked down and smirked, like what she said was true but funny enough to let slide. I didn't say a word. I just stood up and left the room. I went into the bathroom, locked the door, and sat on the edge of the tub. I didn't cry right away. I just stared at the tile. I felt cold all over. Embarrassed. Ashamed. Angry. So goddamn angry. That night, I didn't sleep next to him. I stayed in the guest room. He came in once, asked if I was okay. I told him I was tired. He didn't push. We didn't talk about it the next day. Or the day after that. 2 weeks later, something incredible happened. My boss called me into his office. He told me they were moving me up, vice president of operations. National level. Full team. High 6 figures. It was everything I had worked for since I was 23. And the first person I thought of? Eleanor. Not Daniel. Not my mom. Not my mentor. Eleanor. Because all I could hear in my head was glorified maid. That's when I knew what I had to do. I planned a party. Not just any party. A full celebration. A catered event downtown. I booked a rooftop venue. Classy. Upscale. With a clear view of the skyline. I sent out real invitations in the mail. Thick, embossed cardstock. At the top of every invite I wrote, "From Maid to CEO, a celebration of growth," and no, she wasn't invited. Neither was Daniel. By then, we were barely talking. Sharing a house, yes. But nothing else. I didn't tell him about the promotion. He found out from someone at the gym who got an invite. He came home pissed. You're really doing this? Without me? You're throwing a party and not inviting your husband? I said, you're not my partner anymore, Daniel. You're her son first, and that's all you've ever been. He said I was making a scene, that I was hurting the family, and I looked him right in the face and said, I stopped being part of your family the night you laughed when she called me a maid. He didn't say a word. The night of the party came. I wore red. First time I'd worn red in years. It made me feel powerful, confident,
alive.
People showed up in waves. Friends,
Family,
coworkers, even my old supervisor from my first job came. I gave a speech. It wasn't long, but it was real. I said, when I started in this industry, I was told I didn't look the part, that I came from the wrong background, that I was too quiet, too modest, too plain. But tonight, I'm proud to say that none of that mattered. Because I'm not here because someone picked me. I'm here because I earned it. Every long night, every early morning, every thankless job. I was called a maid once. And maybe I was. But even maids can rise. Tonight, I'm a CEO. The room erupted. Then, just as we were cutting the cake, I saw her. Eleanor. At the door. In a full white dress, pearls around her neck, holding a gift bag like she thought this was her moment. But the security team stopped her. I'd given them strict orders. Names only from the list. No exceptions. She argued. Loudly. I'm her family. This is a mistake. I helped her become who she is. I deserve to be in there. People started looking over. My aunt tapped me on the arm. You want to handle it?
I walked over. Calm. Steady.
I looked her in the eye and said, you called me a maid. You laughed at me in my own home. You tried to make me feel small. But now I've built something big, and you're not welcome inside. She stood there stunned. No one came to defend her. She left. Alone. And I turned back to my party. After the party, everything changed. Words spread fast. People talked. Eleanor showing up and getting turned away became a kind of legend at my company. My team respected me more than ever. Friends I hadn't seen in years reached out. Even a few of Daniel's friends messaged me saying, good for you. But the silence at home got heavier. Daniel still lived there. We barely said a word to each other. He kept sleeping in our bedroom. I stayed in the guest room. He stopped trying to talk. Stopped pretending we could fix anything. I guess when you watch your wife succeed without needing you, it bruises the ego. 2 weeks later, he served me with divorce papers. He didn't even talk to me about it first. Just left the envelope on the kitchen table next to the coffee pot. I laughed when I saw it. Not because it was funny. Because it was pathetic. He listed irreconcilable differences. Said I was emotionally unfaithful to the marriage. I guess standing up for myself counted as betrayal in his mind. I didn't fight it. I signed. I called a lawyer and made sure I kept everything that was mine. But that wasn't the end. Eleanor started calling people. She told them I was unstable, that I had publicly humiliated her, that I was poisoning the family. One of her church friends sent me a message on Facebook saying, it's sad what power does to some women. I ignored it. Until she showed up at my office.
Yeah.
She walked into the lobby like she belonged there. Told the receptionist she was here to speak to the CEO. They called up. I could have sent security. Could have had her escorted out like the last time. But I didn't. I told them to let her up. When she walked into my office, she looked like she had rehearsed something. A whole speech maybe. But she didn't get the chance. I didn't offer her a seat. I said, if you're here to apologize, I might listen. If not, walk out right now. Her face changed. Real fast. You think you're powerful now? You think a title makes you better than me? I didn't move. Just stood behind my desk.
Calm. No.
But the fact that you're standing in my office while I decide if you stay or go, that tells me everything I need to know. She said Daniel was falling apart. That he wasn't eating. that he was humiliated, that his friends had turned on him. I didn't blink. That's not my problem. I begged him to stand up for me. He chose silence. Let him sit with it. She looked like she wanted to throw something. Her hands actually trembled. Then she said something I'll never forget. I should have warned him. Women like you always end up alone. I leaned in. Maybe. But I'd rather be alone at the top than married to a man who lets his mother spit on his wife. I buzzed security. She left. But she wasn't done. 2 weeks later, I got an email from HR. Apparently, someone filed an anonymous complaint against me, accusing me of favoritism, of creating a hostile work environment, of manipulating promotions. It was laughable, totally baseless. But it triggered an internal review. And just like that, the glow of my promotion got a little dimmer. I wasn't stupid. I knew who was behind it. Eleanor didn't have a job, but she had time. And she had connections. One of her close friends, Lorraine, had a son who used to work in our company's finance department. He left a year ago on bad terms after being passed up for a role I gave to someone more qualified. I had a feeling Eleanor whispered just the right poison in his ear. The investigation dragged for weeks. I had to hand over emails, documents, and even meeting notes. They interviewed my entire team. I stayed calm on the outside, but inside I was burning. This was personal. Daniel texted me during that time. First time in over a month. I heard you're under investigation.
I'm sorry.
I didn't respond. He texted again 2 days later. Can we talk? Maybe we moved too fast with the divorce. And that's when it hit me. He wasn't sorry I got dragged into a false complaint. He wasn't reaching out because he missed me. He thought I might lose my title, and suddenly I wasn't so scary anymore. I didn't reply, but I did make a decision. I requested to speak at the final review meeting. Not required, but allowed. When the time came, I sat in a room with the board, HR, and legal. I told them everything. I gave them names, dates, emails. I laid out a timeline so clean they couldn't poke a single hole in it. I ended with this. I've never hidden where I come from. I worked for everything I have. I've made enemies because I've said no to powerful people who expected me to say yes. But I've never abused this position. If anyone here believes otherwise, you're free to vote me out. They didn't. The report cleared me. Fully. But the moment stuck with me. It reminded me that no matter how high you climb, someone's always waiting to drag you down. Especially if they think you don't deserve to be there. A week later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, just my name in perfect handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper. It said, "Enjoy your tower. Just don't forget the fall is always longer from the top."
No signature.
No surprise either. She wasn't done. Not by a long shot. I kept that note in my drawer. Didn't tell anyone about it. I wasn't scared, just tired. Tired of being the bigger person. Tired of defending myself. Tired of smiling through people's bitterness. But I wasn't done. If Eleanor wanted to keep playing games, I had one final move to make. I knew something about her that almost no one else did. Something Daniel once let slip during a late-night conversation before we got married. Eleanor's late husband, Daniel's father, had left a small trust fund for their future grandkids. She controlled it. It wasn't a lot, maybe $100,000, but it was locked up under a family foundation name, not even in her own. The thing is, she had been slowly siphoning money from it. Nothing massive, just a few thousand a year under fake expenses. Daniel thought it was shady, but never did anything about it. I had saved the emails where he mentioned it. I had screenshots of messages. I even had a tax document she once carelessly left in our glove box. And now I had the time and the rage to put it to use. I called a financial crimes attorney, laid out everything. He helped me file a report anonymously. 3 weeks later, the foundation's board was alerted.
She didn't know it was me, not at first.
Then one morning, I saw her name on the news. Local woman under investigation for misuse of family foundation funds. It wasn't national, just local media. But the damage was done. Her church pulled her from the charity board. Her friends stopped calling. Her lawyer's son-in-law from her first marriage? He cut ties. And Daniel? He sent me one more text. You destroyed her. I wrote back, for the first time in months. She started it. He never responded. 3 months later, I heard from a mutual friend that Eleanor had moved in with her sister in a retirement community outside of Houston. No more pearl necklaces. No more book clubs. Just silence. As for Daniel, he tried to rebuild his image. Dated a woman half his age. Even tried to start a podcast about resilient masculinity. It tanked. He blamed cancel culture. Truth is, no one cared enough to cancel him. He just wasn't interesting. And me? I kept going. Not because I wanted to rise above. No, I'd done that already. I kept going because I still had more to prove. Not to them. To myself. But I wasn't clean in all this. I let anger drive me. I turned cold. I played the same cruel game Eleanor did. I just played it better. I burned bridges. Made enemies. I became someone who fought so hard not to be stepped on. I forgot what it felt like to just walk without stomping. Still, I slept better. Because sometimes revenge doesn't taste sweet. It tastes like fire. And I was okay with that. They lit the match. I just made sure they burned with it.